Well, we've made significant advances in the technology of the airframe, the engines, the electronics.
Hello and welcome. Elon Musk is arguably America's greatest living innovator. He has achieved success with nearly everything he's touched. He's an entrepreneur and a businessman. He founded XCOM in 1999, which later became PayPal, then SpaceX in 2002, and Tesla Motors in 2003. Musk became a multimillionaire in his late 20s and has been rocketing to huge financial wins ever since. From his early days teaching himself to program computers, Elon Musk has worked to improve the quality of life for everyone through technology. He has said when somebody has a breakthrough innovation, it's rarely one little thing. It's usually a whole bunch of things that collectively amount to a huge innovation. He isn't as much of an inventor as he is an innovator and entrepreneur. His genius lies in his managerial know-how and supply chain optimization abilities. He's extremely skilled at finding cheaper ways of doing almost anything, as well as marketing up-and-coming technologies and achieving public support. Musk's ambitions are those of a forward-thinking innovator and entrepreneur whose global and environmental awareness have led him to recognize large-scale unmet needs in society where huge profits await the person who provides the solution first. Innovation is not some mysterious thing, he says.
As I go, innovation per year, if you want to say it, like, is what matters, not innovation absent time.
It's basically being just an absolute perfectionist about the product or service that you make. It also doesn't need to be some big breakthrough. Just make your product better. This is the thing that really matters. Musk claims that creating innovative products is absolutely learnable. It all comes down to answering a few simple questions. Step 1 would be, have you tried it? Step 2 would be, how can you make it better? And step 3, are you spending too much time in conference rooms? His audacious visions and bold pronouncements have made Musk an inspiring and controversial figure, but we have to admit, he definitely knows how to innovate.
We need to push for radical breakthroughs. And if you don't push for radical breakthroughs, you're not going to get radical outcomes. There's no country more innovative and inventive than the United States. So it's just important to use that attribute. That's the ACE card. Completely failing to innovate. Not every role requires innovation. In a role where innovation should be happening and it's not happening, then they should either not be promoted or exited. And let me tell you, you'll get promoted. You'll get innovation real fast. Failure must be an option. If failure is not an option, it's going to result in extremely conservative choices. If you get something even worse than lack of innovation, things may go backwards. So if what you really want is to be proportionate to the actions that you seek. So if what you're seeking is innovation, then you should reward success in innovation and only minor consequences for minor consequences for trying and failing, with significant rewards for trying and succeeding, minor consequences for trying and not succeeding, and big major negative consequences for not trying.
I think there's innovation, but then there's also just, are CEOs in corporate America focused enough on product improvement? I think the answer is no. And I think generally my advice or my recommendation would really be spend less time on finance, spend less time in conference rooms, less time on PowerPoint, and more time just trying to make your product as amazing as possible. I think there might be too many MBAs running companies. There's the MBAization of America, which I think is maybe not that great. There should be more focus on the product, the service itself, less time on board meetings, less time on financials. The financials come as a result of, like you say, like, what's the point of a company at all? And why even have companies? It's like a company is an assembly of people gathered together to create a product or service and deliver that product or service. And sometimes people lose sight of that. A company has no value in and of itself. It only has value to the degree that it is an effective allocator of resources to create goods and services that are of greater value than the cost of the inputs. This thing we call profit should just mean over time that the value of the output is worth more than the inputs.
It goes back to when I was in university. I thought about what are the problems that are most likely to affect the future of the world or future of humanity. I think it's extremely important that we have sustainable transport and sustainable energy production. That sort of overall sustainable energy problem is the biggest problem that we have to solve this century. Independent of environmental concerns, in fact, even if producing CO2 is good for the environment, given that we're going to run out of hydrocarbons. We need to find some sustainable means of operating, try to get the highest possible range. So we want to really have people feel as though they've almost got a mind meld. There actually are far more charging stations than people realize. Well, we've made significant advances in the technology of the airframe, the engines, the electronics, and the launch operation. I mean, there's a long list of innovations that we've come up with there.
I think the massive thing that can be done is to make sure your incentive structure is such that innovation is rewarded and lack of innovation is punished. So you've got to be a carrot and a stick. So if somebody is innovating and making good progress, then they should be promoted sooner. And if somebody is completely failing to innovate, not every role requires innovation, but if they're in a role where innovation should be happening and it's not happening, then they should either not be promoted or exited. And let me tell you, you'll get promoted, you'll get innovation real fast. But the real way I think you actually achieve intellectual property protection is by innovating fast enough. If your rate of innovation is high, then you don't need to worry about protecting the IP because other companies will be copying something that you did years ago. And that's fine. Just make sure your rate of innovation is fast. Speed of innovation is what matters. And I do say this to my teams quite a lot, that innovation per unit time, as I go innovation per year, if you want to say it, is what matters, not innovation absent time.